Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to October 18th. I know I haven't seen you in forever. I still work here. Excuse me. Been traveling, went on vacation, got COVID. Um, Lots and lots of stuff going on. I'm fine. COVID is just lingering. The cough is the biggest thing that is just doing my nut, but I am incredibly lucky and very, very thankful for vaccines and boosters. Um, Aaron and I have been joking that I got the Texas variant because I definitely caught it in Texas and it fought its way through two full vaccines and three boosters for me to get COVID. So everything's bigger in Texas. All right, Aaron and Eleanor are actually both in the air right now as we speak. So I'm holding down the fort. We are all heading to the great state of Colorado for a couple days, both for some business stuff and then some personal stuff as well. And we're stoked to be all together in one place. We don't get that very often, as you know. So we're very, very grateful. I am going to go ahead and get started on the empathy exercises for today. We've got a few. Aaron sent hers in. You'll be shocked to hear that we're talking about Hockey Canada again. But we've got some other ones that are fun too. So the first one I'm going to share is actually one I found from Share Screen. Thank you. Thank you so, so much, StreamYard. So the first one is one that I found. This came to us last week, and I thought it was a really, really good empathy exercise for us to bring up. You can see that it's Broadway. Hadestown is a musical that has gotten an absolute slew of praise. It's not one that I've personally seen, but it's a retelling of some of Greek myths. Very excited to see it. There's also been a kind of rash lately of performers from stages kind of calling out audience members for their behavior. If they're filming on a phone or they're talking. Patty Lapone did this in Company. A couple of the performers from Hamilton very famously did it in the original cast. And so Lilius White, who's currently playing Hermes and has gotten a lot of praise for their performance, Samantha Coleman, who is hard of hearing, recounted in an emotional Instagram video that she was scolded not once, but twice for using her closed captioning device because Lilius thought it was a recording device. So Jujamson apologized immediately and said, "We are reviewing our policies and internal protocols to ensure this doesn't happen again." The production connected directly with Samantha earlier today to convey their apologies and thank her for bringing this to their attention so that it can be addressed. I thought this was so great. Immediately, the incident yesterday is a reminder that this is an ongoing process and in their commitment to accessibility in all forms. I have never been a fan of performers shaming people from the stage, even if it's kind of fun in the moment. And I'm a whole lot more, it might be fun to like really call out somebody who's recording and is going to pirate it and all that kind of stuff. But and I don't mind breaking the fourth wall. Like I don't mind the audience, the performers talking to the audience. It's one of the reasons I pay for live theater. But I really hate shaming of all kinds because you never know someone's story. Even if they are going to record it, I promise you they're not taking money from you. I promise you. If somebody is searching out torrents of your musical, if they have the physical opportunity to, they're probably still going to see it in person. So I'm really glad that Jujamson apologized. Lilius has not, to my knowledge. And I really hope that was done privately, that Lilius herself reached out to Samantha and apologized privately. This is a great reminder for all of us that we never know someone's story. We never know what the device they're using really does. I know sometimes I get really judgy at parents who have give their kids tablets and lines for Disney and things. And I'm like, oh my God, they're just sitting there watching YouTube. And then I look and the kids are reading a book and I'm just ridiculous. So we always need to remember that we don't know what people's stories. Speaking of not knowing people's stories, the second one up is a reminder that the revolution in Iran is still happening. I want to Google really quickly for you guys because we just found this out. Rock climber. Here we go. So sorry for the silence there for a minute, but I wanted to bring this up. So we're talking about Iran. There's a great op-ed here in The Guardian that I'm going to link for you guys in the show notes to be able to kind of peruse, and why Iranian women in particular think that this real change could actually happen for this. Yesterday, or in the day before, kind of an evolving story via timelines, was that Elnaz Rakabi is a international rock climber, and she appeared yesterday at a rock climbing expedition without her hijab on. She then, this is from 2016. This is normally how she climbs. And then yesterday she climbed with just, you can see here, her bare head and a ponytail. There was reports directly after the competition that she went missing. She has since been located, and on her Instagram have said it fell off inadvertently. So there's a couple reasons why this could be true. Obviously, we need to, take her at her word that this is not, maybe it did come off inadvertently. Maybe she took it off in a form of protest and then got threatened and decided she couldn't continue with the protest. Either way, the covering of women's hair as a mandatory part of citizenship is something that really bothers us. If you choose to wear a hijab, that's beautiful and amazing and your choice. The government, killing citizens for a lock of hair showing is insane. It just is insane. It's not in the Quran. It's not part of 90% of Islamic adherents. It's not necessary, and we definitely stand against it. Though, let this serve as a little bit of your minor reminder that Iran is still happening. It was really cool. I was on Instagram and I saw a couple people. I think Brandon Routh was one of them, who was cutting their hair in solidarity with the women, which I thought was really rad. In terms of solidarity, I also want to flag with you this story of CNN journalists that were brought up, rightfully so, on charges of, I don't think it was legal charges. They have to pay a fine. So yeah, like civil charges. Because when the Thai nursery shooting happened last week, these people decided to go in with their cameras like rolling. And you can see they entered the building where the attack occurred and filmed on site. They were accused of trespassing and filming a crime scene without permission. They were later cleared of charges, but they were fined as working as journalists while they are on tourist visas. They've apologized, but like, holy crap, you weren't even there to cover it? And if you were there to cover it, why weren't you there on journalism visas? Like, Thailand isn't exactly a totalitarian state. Sure, you could have gotten a visa to be there as a journalist. This is a real bad look for CNN and the training of their journalists to remember that we don't go into active crime scenes and film. And just because the people are brown does not give us the right to do that. So really, really good call up by the Thai government. Glad these people got held accountable. And I hope this serves as a reminder to never do this again to any emerging journalists. Okay. Now, I'd like to do one piece of good news as a palate cleanser. Then we're going to talk about Hockey Canada. And then we're going to do another piece of good news. So good news, CVS has decided to drop prices on tampons and take the tax off. They will not pass the tax on to consumers, to people who menstruate. They pay the chain last week began paying sales tax on period products in 12 states. Starting this Thursday, they will also drop prices 25% on CVS brand tampons, menstrual pads, liners, and cups. This is massive. This is massive. This is awesome. Also, the new CVS health advertisements have been really geared towards making this point that they're not going to ask women or people who menstruate to pay the pink tax anymore. They're not going to require that. It's just mind-boggling. I mean, I'm so glad that change is happening. It's insane that products that people cannot avoid using are taxed differently than other products people cannot avoid using, like food. So really, really glad that CVS made this step, and really, really happy for, I'm an IUD, so I use like 3 tampons a year, but there's a lot of other people for whom this will really, really affect their budget, and I am thrilled for them. All right, are you guys ready for some Hockey Canada? So the first thing we got was last week, like last Thursday, the Hockey Canada CEO departed. The board resigned in a full first step. People were really, there was some great op-eds, including some speeches from Prime Minister Trudeau, that like, we really hope that this is not just a cleaning house for show, but that people really take the time to figure out what a positive hockey culture could look like. And then people who have known hockey for a long time are kind of like, positive hockey culture, that's a little bit of anathema. This came right around the same time as news came from the National Hockey League that charges against Ian Cole were an investigation against Tampa Bay Lightning player Ian Cole for sexual misconduct, like, didn't really go anywhere because they couldn't contact, according to the NHL, could not get in touch with the accuser, who released her statement on Twitter. And it's just a reminder. And when you look at the replies of both of these situations, it's a great reminder that creating a positive hockey culture is a big task. It is a sport built on telling these boys, primarily, because women's hockey just works a little bit differently. So we're talking about men's hockey. Telling these boys when they are very young and their baby brains are craving adoration, that they are gods among men. They then go and they're sent away from their families. All of the ones who are professionals, pretty much billeted. So they spend their developmental years away from their family being treated like hockey gods. And there is then a lot of women who are programmed to believe that they are, in fact, gods. And the cycle of rape culture and purity culture just keeps going. Creating a positive hockey culture can absolutely, it is necessary to have leadership committed to that. But at the same time, I'm very concerned that if anyone believes that simply replacing the leadership of Hockey Canada is going to do anything. What it can do, however, is clean house in terms of financial management. A couple days later, it was revealed by one of my favorite journalist sites, honestly, on sports, The Athletic, that Hockey Canada maintained a third and largely shielded reserve fund for uninsured claims. People are making jokes where it's like, well, was there a fund for every single board member? Like, how many of these funds are we going to find? What these reserve funds, like, they knew this was obviously a really big problem and they just kept paying it off. Lots of things here. I know we talk about this case a lot and we talk about abuse cases a lot, but one of the major reasons why we do that, and I'll go full screen here really briefly, one of the major reasons that we do that is that understanding that the systems of power is part of empathy. Having an empathetic worldview is understanding that you never say things like, well, what was she wearing? Or she shouldn't have been there, or he should have come forward earlier. Part of an empathetic worldview and practice is saying, I don't know people's stories. People believe to be heard. When you look at statistics, it's the highest number of false reports we've ever seen is 6% of cases. So the overwhelming dominance of research is that when people come forward, their stories are true. I understand that the Duke lacrosse case put a lot of doubt in people's minds, but we've been researching this for years and talking to people who do. Oh, it is an incredibly emotional gauntlet to come forward with stories. It is not something anyone gets rich off of. In fact, most people's lives are ruined. Christine Blasey Ford and her accusations against Justice Kavanaugh are a great example. She's, as far as I know, still pretty much a hermit in her home because she doesn't feel she can leave it all these years later. So it's not, because here's even the messier thing, and we may be some of the only people saying this, but it's entirely possible that people in Hockey Canada, excuse me, or Ian Cole, or Jameis Winston, or any of these other people, because of the way we talk about sex and women's bodies and male athletes, don't actually believe they're abusing anybody. They could believe that this is almost like a reward, or they could think that no means yes, or they're flirting. I believe that a lot of the cases, both sides are true. The girl absolutely said no, and the boy didn't believe that that happened, or wasn't taught that if she's drunk, she can't consent anyway. I think there's not as many bad actors as we think there are. It's a rotten system. It's a rotten system. And unfortunately, that still means accountability has to be held. Ruining anyone's life is not ever the goal of these things. Brock Turner aside, I'm happy to ruin his life, to be frank. People usually just want to protect other women, other survivors, or get some sort of justice. Ian Cole in particular, it sounds like he was a bad actor for a really long time in a lot of different teams. He wasn't a great dude. All of these kind of things. Hockey Canada is super, super messy because it's government funding and people's dues and an emblem of the culture. And I know I'm rambling, and I know this is probably a really messy argument, but it's one that I'm passionate about. When I think about Jameis Winston, who went on to win the Heisman Trophy and is still playing in the NFL, he was accused very credibly of sexual assault by a fellow Florida State University student while he was playing at FSU. And when I listened to her story, he was very violent. He slammed her head against the floor. He, assaulted her after she said no. I am terrified that he thought those things were, okay, and he knew he was raping her. I'm even more terrified that he didn't think it was rape because he was Jameis Winston and he had been told he could have anybody he wanted. And that all of her protests were just part of a game. And I think about that a lot when we do these kind of things. We need to believe survivors because the only way we can change the narrative and make sure that people understand that no always means no, always. That if you cannot consent, you cannot consent. That abuse, that anyone who asks you to keep a relationship a secret as a child does not have your best interest at heart. Until we have these conversations louder, we're still going to have people that believe they are owed other people's bodies. And that is what needs to stop. Hockey Canada is breaking all of our hearts. In the United States, this is the equivalent of Aaron's and my anger over the USA Gymnastics Committee. It's the same kind of equivalency. It's just an even bigger deal there because obviously gymnastics isn't our national sport or our national birthright in a lot of ways. We know several people who have made the very brave decisions to not put their children into Hockey Canada programs this year because they don't know where their money's going and they can't guarantee their kids will be safe. It's an incredibly brave decision by Canadian parents, the ones that are doing that. And the ones that haven't aren't cowards. They're just making different decisions. But it grieves us that they're even having to have this conversation because Hockey Canada has been so mismanaged for so long. But we're going to end on a happy Canadian note to remind us that not all is doom and gloom in the Great White North. And that news comes to us from Nova Scotia. If you subscribe to our newsletter, you saw that I mentioned this last week, subscribing to our newsletter is a great idea because you're going to find all sorts of preview stuff that you wouldn't know about any other way. On the island of Nova Scotia, one of the original peoples, the main original people to the island of Nova Scotia, were the Mi'kmaq people. And in this past summer, in the summer of 2022, the province of Nova Scotia passed a law that Mi'kmaq would actually be the primary language of Nova Scotia moving forward. This is incredible. This means that Mi'kmaq will be taught in school. This means that government business can be conducted in Mi'kmaq. It can also be conducted in English or French because they were already bilingual. But the idea that the Mi'kmaq language is like primary is utterly incredible. Legislation to recognize Nova Scotia's first language, Mi'kmaq as Nova Scotia's first language. I think it's just really, really, really beautiful. I can't imagine many other places making this move. So good on the Mi'kmaq people for their advocacy. I'm sure that took it to get here. Amazing to all of the non-native people of Nova Scotia that they're willing to take it. And I'm so excited that non-native people will be able to learn the Mi'kmaq language. And I hope that this will encourage a culture of respect. I know I certainly think differently about cultures where I can speak their language. And I hope that's really, really true for the settler Canadians and the Indigenous Canadians, especially on the island of Nova Scotia. All right, when Aaron's not here, I come in at under 20 minutes. Wild. Next week, I'll be alone again. Might see if I can wrangle a friend or two to show up with me. But it is, as always, delightful to be with you. We've got some really big announcements coming this winter for our coverage of things like Hallmark movies and The Crown. By the way, we just found out The Crown's coming back. We've had to rearrange schedules, guys. It's been very stressful. Coverage of The Crown will start December 1st here on this YouTube channel. And we'll continue with, and November will finish The Handmaid's Tale. That's how we're going to do it. So we'll finish The Handmaid's Tale in November. Coverage of The Crown will start December 1st, which is also the same week that coverage of all of the various holiday movies will start. This year, we're going to be grouping things by tropes and talking about storytelling and tropes and why empathy requires understanding stories as well. I'm going to sign off here. Please, replay crew, comment and let us know your thoughts. As always, we would really, really love to get your empathy exercises and hear what you're thinking about this week. To everybody who missed Erin, trust me, I did too. She'll be back soon, I promise. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye.